The next few poses will be done in a standing position. Please move slowly and at your own pace. Keep the sturdy chair nearby for balance if needed. If you find that I'm talking faster than you are moving, please take your time and do fewer repetitions. Take a nice deep inhale and exhale. Place the feet about hips-width apart and grounded on the floor. Lift the toes and spread them nice and wide, and feel the navel pull gently in towards the spine. Push the toes into the floor and lean forward just a little bit. Feel the muscles that keep you steady. Lean back just a little bit and feel the toes come up. Feel the muscles that keep you steady in this position. Now push all four corners of the feet into the floor. Notice the steadiness of mountain pose. Notice how the steadiness of mountain pose feels. On the next inhale, roll the shoulders towards the ears, back and down so the shoulders are slightly open. Let the palms rest open to the side. Inhale and let the arms rise with the palms facing up. Exhale, bend at the elbows and allow the hands to come down the center line. Sink into the knees just a little. Repeat this again. Inhale, lift the arms with the palms facing up. Allow the hands and face to be relaxed. Continue with this movement at your own pace. Breathe as you move, and try to coordinate the breath with the movement. On the next breath, lift the arms back over the head. Fingertips point in, palms face up. Imagine that you have candles in the palms of your hands and you do not want to spill them. Turn the fingertips so they face behind you. The palms remain up. Turn the fingertips to the side and then to the front like an offering, then out to the side walls. Breathe as you move, up to the top with the fingers facing in again, towards one another, and then forwards like an offering, then out to the side walls. Breathe as you move, up to the top with the fingers facing in again. Let's do this rotation one more time. After the second rotation, allow the hands to cascade down by the side and let them rest. Pause for one slow inhale and exhale. One more breath. Inhale, exhale. This next exercise is excellent for strengthening the spine and gently stretching the muscles of the back, front, and sides. Attempt to make the movement easeful and gentle. We will do these movements with various arm positions. The first arm position is the easiest. Please be sure to stay with the one that feels best for your body. We will demonstrate them all. Take the right hand to the waist and then the left. Roll the shoulders open. And on the exhale, lean to the right. Inhale to the center. On the exhale, lean to the left. Inhale back to the center. Roll the shoulders up, back, and down. And on the next inhale, gently pull the navel towards the spine. Pull the shoulder blades softly together. Get a small lift in the chin and feel a sense of lengthening through the front of the body. On the next exhale, begin to fold gently forward. It does not have to be all the way. Bend the knees slightly. Inhale and rise back to a standing position. Open the left arm to the side. Keep the elbow bent. Leave the right hand on the waist. Inhale. Exhale, lean slightly to the right, and then return back to the center. Bring the left hand down to the waist. Lift the right arm. Inhale. Exhale and lengthen to the left. Return to the center. Roll the shoulders open. Gently pull the navel in towards the spine. Pull the shoulder blades softly together. Get a small lift in the chin. Exhale and fold forward halfway. Inhale back to standing. Open the left arm again. Inhale, and on the exhale, lean to the right. Inhale and return back to the center. Place the left hand on the waist. Lift the right arm. Inhale. On the exhale, lean to the left. Inhale and return back to the center. Roll the shoulders open. Lengthen through the front of the body. Slightly pull the shoulder blades together. Get a small lift in the chin. Exhale and fold forward. Knees slightly bent. Inhale and return to standing in mountain pose. Pause for a moment. Inhale and exhale. For this warrior sequence, attempt to keep the movements gentle and relaxed. If you notice that you are struggling, move the feet closer together. Lower the arms or make the movements smaller. This pose is great for strengthening the legs, respiration, and opening the shoulders. Step the left foot forward just a few feet. The back foot points in at a 45-degree angle. The front knee bends and the hips face front if possible. Inhale, open the arms and bend at the elbows. On the exhale, bring the hands and elbows towards each other. Inhale, open the arms and push the heart softly forwards. Relax the shoulders. Exhale, bring the arms together. Inhale, open the arms to where you feel comfortable. Exhale, relax the arms inwards. Inhale, open and expand. Exhale, contract. Inhale, exhale. Bring the hands back down by the side. Return to mountain pose. One breath here. Inhale, exhale. Step the right foot forward. Take a moment, there's no rush. Ground the back foot into the floor. Bend the front knee. When you are ready, open the arms. Inhale. Exhale, bring the hands and elbows towards one another. Inhale, open the arms. This is a relaxed opening in the chest. Exhale, bring the hands and arms towards one another. Inhale, repeat again, creating spaciousness with a full inhale. Exhale, contract and relax the arms slightly. 2 more times at your own pace. Inhale, open. Exhale, close. Let the hands rest down by the side and return back to mountain pose. Pause here for a few breaths.
Welcome back to the 11th online episode of Peacetime, hosted on alternating Sunday mornings by Peacepoint, with myself, Prat Nicholas Thanissaro, live streaming from Dhammakaya International Meditation Center in Azusa, California. Today's session will be about an hour and a quarter long and will consist of a 25-minute talk and 20 minutes of meditation, finishing up with 25 minutes of conclusion, answers to viewer questions submitted in advance, and news updates. Last time you saw me, we looked at the various aspects of spiritual friendship. The topic for the Dhamma talk today will be rationing unconditional love and reluctant leadership. Again, this session, I would encourage you to send in any questions you have by posting them on the Peacepoint Meditation YouTube page or Peacepoint Meditation Facebook page, or by sending them to me via Jintana Wachalapong, so that I can have a shot at answering them next time round. This session, we continue to deal with the remainder of the challenges concerning how to keep open, effective channels of communication with other people. One way to think about your social world is that you have an inner circle of people who you often talk to and feel close to, and an outer circle of acquaintances that you see infrequently or fleetingly. A sociologist called Mark Granovetter from Stanford University named these categories our strong ties and our weak ties, respectively. We know that being compassionate is good, but the bigger question is how to have enough compassion to go around for all the people we know. The answer is that we need to prioritize and know how to meet others' expectations. And in practice, this means that we may need to know how to ration our unconditional love in order to avoid burnout. Because real care for those we love is quite demanding, we need to distinguish between those for whom we have strong ties and those for whom we have weak ties. I will argue that for those with strong ties to us, we need to have unconditional love. By strong ties, generally I mean close family such as our parents, spouse or partner, our sons and daughters. We have special responsibility for these people with strong ties to us because, for our parents, we have a big existential debt of gratitude for our upbringing and for being brought into the world in the first place. For our other strong ties, we were the ones who chose to have strong ties with them, so we need to have a special level of responsibility. As for the weak ties we have, generally these would refer to our extended family, our aunts and uncles, brothers and sisters, grandparents and in-laws, trusted friends, spiritual teachers and beyond. We divide people we know into strong and weak ties because, in practicality, the expectations are different. We have to give special attention to those who are our strong ties. Why? Because if we don't, then who will? The underlying principle is that for those who constitute our strong ties, we try to give love that is unconditional. For our weak ties, we try to do our best to them at critical times. Although, as we shall see later in today's session, the people we are tied to in society can be divided into 6 groups or directions. Today we will look in particular detail at the 3 groups of our strong ties, our parents, marital partners, and children, and the group of our weak ties, otherwise known as our extended family. Our parents are the first group where our compassion should be unconditional. Being generous to our parents may mean, if they die, that we would organize their funeral. But hopefully that's not the first thing that we would do to help them. If they are feeling down, we should have a kind word for them. Sometimes this means being patient and understanding of the nature of old age. Supposing your parents are rather old and forgetful, they may keep repeating the same stories over and over again. They may be irritated easily by small things, because they may not be very healthy. The nature of old people in general is that before, when they were young, they were active and they could do things for themselves. When they are older, they are not so strong or independent, but they can still see things that need to be done. They may be very observant after many years of experience. When they see things that need to be done but they can't do it for themselves, it makes them irritated and they tend to complain a lot. That is the nature of old people. If you are someone who's not very considerate, then when you meet someone who complains a lot, it is a temptation to get annoyed with them. But if they are your parents, then they deserve more patience. That's one way that you can help them to feel at ease when they are older. Sometimes we know there are things which irritate them. For example, if someone mentions their old debts. Supposing you, as a son or daughter, can help to take care of those debts, they will be able to enjoy more peace of mind. It might mean finding them a walking frame or fitting out a more accessible restroom. These are things that you might not consider doing for those with weak ties to you, but for your parents, it's something enriching to your own mind to be able to do for them, very similar to the sort of richness or inner richness that you discover when you meditate. So compassion, in keeping with the expectations of parents, is to take care of them in their old age and to continue with their life's work, as this will bring them peace of mind in their old age. Our spouse or partner is the second sort of strong tie where our compassion should be unconditional. I won't say much about this because I guess monks should not be considered the resident expert on marital guidance. A general problem, though, is that in a relationship, the people go to all the trouble of getting married or living together, but they are still suspicious of each other. It seems to be quite common for married partners to hold back a little bit on the side for themselves, whether it be their car, their children, or their text messages. Even though they live together, it's like two people living independent lives in the same house. In such a case, it's likely the marriage won't last for very long, because you need to have unconditional sharing to make a marriage work. If you still keep certain parts of your life separate, it's like you are not wholehearted in being together, and it may show a shortfall in unconditional compassion. Our children are the third group of strong ties where our compassion should be unconditional. Sometimes you wouldn't think your children would be very sensitive to small things, but children can be very observant, even of the affection that money can't buy. An example of this is given by Stephen Covey in his famous book on 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Here's the story. There was a businessman who had 2 young sons. He felt guilty because he spent all his time at work and he never had any time for his family. Out of guilt, he would set aside 1 evening a month to take the kids out to do everything they wanted and to assuage the resentment that kids felt about never seeing their father. He would take them to McDonald's and to trampolining and to the movies. For 1 evening they would get to do everything they wanted. The 2 sons were quite young, and by the end of the evening they were exhausted. Halfway through the movie, the youngest son curled up in the cinema seat and fell asleep. At the end of the movie, he'd still not woken up. The father picked up the sleeping son and took him to the car. The older brother followed behind. Because it was cold, the father took off his coat and put it back over the sleeping son to keep him warm in the back of the car. The elder brother saw him do this. Then the whole family drove home together. At home, the mother was waiting and asked, "Boys, did you have a nice evening?" "Oh yes," they said, "we did trampolining and this and that." However, it was as if they were not really interested in all the treats they had had. Moreover, the elder son had a puzzled expression on his face when he asked his father, "But what I really want to know is, if I fell asleep during the movie and you had to put me in the back of the car, would you also put your coat over me to keep me warm?" After all the attention and money that was spent on the kids during that evening, it turned out that the thing that mattered to them the most was the one small gesture by the father that showed that he really cared about his children. This is the nature again of what it means to be unconditional. Sometimes it may be a small or inexpensive gesture, but it shows sincerity in the heart of the doer. This is the real core of the strength of the relationship which you have with another person, especially if they are amongst your strong ties. So you appreciate that for parents, spouse, partner, or children, that it has to be a relationship of special quality if it's going to work. Up to this point, we have been considering our strong ties. However, for every 10 people for whom we have strong ties, there will be 100 with weak ties to us, whether it be our uncles and aunts, brothers and sisters, cousins, nieces and nephews, friends, colleagues and acquaintances. We can still help them, but probably we wouldn't help them with the same intensity as our strong ties. We would help them when we can. Maybe not every time, but if we have the time to help them, then we should help them, especially on one-off occasions that are critical to that person. For example, if they have a funeral in the family, or if they're leaving home for the first time. There will be something special that you can do for them. For our weak ties, we cannot manage to keep them unconditionally all the time, but at certain times in those people's lives when they cannot look after themselves, we should be quick to step in and offer help. Even when welfare can contribute something in times of social need, it cannot contribute everything. When we are healthy, when we can get around by ourselves, we tend to think that we will always be like this. But there are some times in our lives when we lose our independence. For example, when we're children, pregnant, sick, or in our old age, all are times when we lose our independence because of our physical needs. Nonetheless, to save us from burnout, such help needs to be conditional. Just as we will have needs, others have times of vulnerability too. We should do our best for the people at the critical times that arise due to crisis, whether it be natural disasters or financial meltdown, or the times in their lives that mark rites of passage, like baby showers, funerals, or leaving home. When practicing compassion, we have to start with those who are closest to us. If everyone were to do that, then no one in society would be left behind. However, we need to be able to distinguish between weak and strong ties in our practice of compassion. To give an illustration of the trouble you can get in, if you fail to distinguish between conditional and unconditional compassion, imagine the following scenario. Supposing one Sunday afternoon you're washing the car in your driveway. Your neighbor comes rushing out of their house with their daughter in tow and tries to start their car, but the engine will not start. After scratching their head for a while, the neighbor notices you and says, "Could I ask a big favor? I need to take my daughter to a piano lesson, but my car won't start. Would you mind being the one to drive her to her piano lesson today?" So, being a kindly neighbor, you agree to their request and drive the daughter to the piano lesson. And when the lesson is finished, you drive the daughter back again. Then, the following Sunday, even though the neighbor has had their car fixed, they notice that you're washing your car in the driveway again, and ask, "Hey, you know how you drove my daughter to a piano lesson last week? She really enjoyed that. Would you mind taking her again?" So you think, to say no would make me look bad. So you allow yourself to get roped in to driving the daughter to the piano lesson again. This continues to happen every Sunday after that, until one Sunday, uncharacteristically, you have something important of your own to do on a Sunday afternoon apart from washing the car. So, when your neighbor turns up in the driveway with their daughter, you are obligated to say, "No, it's not convenient for me today." At this point, the neighbor looks genuinely offended, like you are a bad person who thinks of nobody but themselves. You end up asking yourself, "Hey, what did I do wrong that helping out someone every Sunday has ended up making me look like a bad person?" If it were you, what would you do differently to prevent your good intentions backfiring? The solution is, from the very beginning, when you're going out of your way to help someone who is one of your weak ties, is to say something to make very clear that your unconditional help is a one-off. Maybe on that first day you can say to them, "I'll take your daughter in my car," but at the same time you need to qualify your offer by saying, "I can take your daughter this week, but I can't promise that I can do it every week," before they ask it or assume it. You are still being compassionate, but you've drawn a clear line. You have your conditions attached. It is being realistic about the limits of your compassion. It's not being stingy. It doesn't affect the quality of your relationship, but it's saying how much and no further. It makes it clear that your priority is to those who are your nearest and dearest, especially for a certain type of people in the world who have problems respecting other people's boundaries. However, if you have more ability and more resources and time, maybe the number of your strong and weak ties can be extended. Some people adopt extra children. Some people look after the neighbors as well as they look after their family. Why not, if you're up for it? However, it is not obligatory. If it is beyond your capability, then maybe you have to be realistic about how much you can manage to give. It is not saying that you are not lacking in generosity, but it's saying that you do what you can for the weak ties with the energy you have left after caring for your strong ties. The quality of how you help your parents, husband, wife, or children is such that even if you need something for yourself, for example a plate of food, you would go hungry for the sake of someone else in your family, rather than letting them go without. Even if you need it yourself, you would still give it to them instead. That's what we mean by unconditional. For your weak ties, though, if you have something left over, perhaps half of the plate of food after you have already had enough to eat, only then would you give it to them. You have to take care of yourself and your nearest and dearest first. If you can do this, it will keep up the quality of the relationship with other people. It's not being stingy, but it's being realistic. If weak ties people come asking for more than you can give, they are not your close family, then you should try to give them something, but maybe not as much as they request. If they are someone who's generous, then you should never refuse anyone outright. You should always find something to help them with, even though it may not be as much as they asked. If you can do this, it doesn't only strengthen your relationship with that person, but it also gives you some richness of mind. When you come to meditate, as a result, you will find that things go more fluently. For a person who always thinks, this is mine, that is mine, I'm not going to share it, I want more from me, more for myself, that's the sort of person who will have problems with meditation. It is the sort of person who cannot expand their mind very easily. But a person who shares, a person who can help other people, but who is also sensible about exactly who these people are, such a person is one who can take delight in being generous to others, and who will get something back for themselves, which is a richness of mind, which is hard to find in any other way. So you can think of a family as an opportunity to cultivate unconditional love, and to cultivate richness of mind, which is hard to find in any other way. Indirectly, it's also about how society can be held together in a very strong way, just by the richness and quality of the relationship which we have with those who are closest to us. So what we do, even within the walls of our family home, is contributing to peace in the world in an indirect way. We get something, our family gets something, and society gets something. In the end, it always comes back to the quality of mind. When we throw a stone in the pond, and there are ripples which spread outward in ever-expanding circles until they reach the edge of the pond, it's the same when you come to develop yourself. It has consequences which change things in a positive way, not just to yourself, but to those all around you as well. However, don't underestimate the value of your weak ties or neglect them, because the central insight of Mark Granovetter, who originated the term strong and weak ties, was that for new information and ideas, our weak ties are more important to us than our strong ties. So in conclusion, neighborliness hasn't been replaced by the welfare state. Family problems can occur when we are conditional, where we should be unconditional in our compassion. Extended family problems can occur when we are unconditional, where we should be conditional in our compassion. And peace in the world starts with peace in the home. Speaking of peace in the world, we come to the time for some meditation for ourselves. If you would like to find a comfortable sitting position for yourself now, as you listen to my meditation instructions. I'd like to invite you all to find a comfortable position for yourself in meditation. With your right leg on your left leg, your right hand on your left hand, with the index finger of your right hand touching against the thumb of your left hand, with your hands palm upwards on your lap. Or you can adopt any other looser variation of this position, which helps you to feel more comfortable for your meditation. The important thing is that you feel alert, but yet relaxed. You should adjust your body so that your breathing and your circulation are completely natural. Adjust your position to minimize any possible aches or pains. Anything that might disturb the continuity of your attention. And relax every muscle of your body. Relax every muscle, starting with the muscles of your forehead. Your eyebrows, your eyelids, and take special care to make sure that your eyes are only very gently closed. Make sure there's no pressure around your eyes. Never squeeze your eyes closed. But close your eyes only very gently, in much the same way you would close your eyes to go to sleep. And relax the muscles of your face, your neck, both shoulders, both arms down to the tips of your fingers. Relax them all completely. Relax the muscles of your chest, trunk and abdomen, both of your legs, down to the tips of your toes. So that all the way from the top of your head to the tips of your toes, there's no remaining part of your body with any stress or tension anymore. If you notice any stress or tension still remaining in your body, then try to relax it completely. Because the body that is completely relaxed, I have the feeling as if it seems to melt away into the atmosphere around you. You have no further worries about your body anymore. So that you can turn your attention to relaxing the mind. Relax the mind by letting go of all thoughts about the things of the world. For a few moments put aside all worries and concerns about your everyday life. Don't allow your mind to wander to thoughts of work, friends, family, study, or any other thing. But keep your mind on the task in hand. The task of training the mind. while filling your mind with thoughts of happiness and joy. Fill your thoughts with happiness and joy, as if your mind was completely filled with tiny particles of happiness and joy. Filling your mind so full that there's no room left in your mind for anything else. Make your mind spacious, light, radiant, and refreshed. And such a mind is one which is ready and waiting for the harmony and unity which we will embark upon in the meditation to follow. So once you are relaxed both in body and in mind, very gently, using no effort at all, imagine for yourself a picture of a bright object. A picture of a bright object such as a shining sun, a shining full moon, or a star, or a crystal ball, any one of the four which you find easiest to imagine. Imagine a picture of that bright object as if that object is floating in front of your face. A shining sun, a full moon, a star, or a shining crystal ball, as if it is floating in front of your face. Imagine it effortlessly. And reduce the object of your choice in size until it is only 1 centimeter in diameter, until it is the size of the tip of your little finger and floating in front of your nose, in front of the left nostril for women, and in front of the right nostril for gentlemen, floating in front of your nose at a point we call the first base of the mind. Make the bright object as bright as you can and as clear as you can, while in your mind repeating to yourself the sound of the mantra Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang 3 times. And then move this shining bright object slowly but smoothly inside your nostril, inside the left nostril for women and inside the right nostril for men, moving slowly inside your nostril until it reaches a point inside your nose just next to the corner of the eye. And here it stops at a point we call the second base of the mind. Here the object stops still, and we make the object as bright as we can and as clear as we can, while hearing the sound of the mantra Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang 3 times. and then the bright object moves slowly backwards inside our head, backwards on a horizontal plane, until it comes to a point in the precise center of our skull, in the very center of our head, a point we call the third base of the mind. Here again the bright object comes to a standstill. Here we make the object as bright as we can and as clear as we can, while repeating to ourselves, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, 3 times. And now the bright object is moving gently downwards, downwards from the center of your head, directly downwards, until it comes to a point at the roof of your mouth, a point we call the 4th base of the mind. Here the bright object comes to a standstill. We make the object as bright as we can and as clear as we can, while at the same time repeating the mantra to ourselves, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, 3 times. And again the bright object moves directly downwards, downwards inside our throat, downwards until it reaches a point just above the Adam's apple, a point we call the 5th base of the mind. Here the bright object comes to a standstill. We make the object as bright as we can and as clear as we can, while at the same time repeating the mantra to ourselves, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, 3 times. And now the bright object moves downwards again, deeper inside our chest, deeper inside our trunk, deeper inside our abdomen, moving directly downwards. If you imagine the central part of your body, then imagine 2 thin threads, one thread running from your navel on a horizontal plane directly through your back, a second thread on the same plane from the left side to the right side. Those 2 threads come to an intersection at a point in the center of the body, a point we call the 6th base of the mind. Now we move our bright object downwards until it comes to this intersection of the 2 threads, at a point in the center of our stomach. The bright object comes to a standstill at this point. We make the object as bright as we can and as clear as we can, while at the same time repeating the mantra to ourselves, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, 3 times. And now we move the bright object slowly upwards. Upwards the distance of 2 finger breadths above the intersection of the 2 threads. 2 finger breadths above the intersection of the 2 threads, to a point we call the 7th base of the mind. The bright object reaches the 7th base of the mind and comes to a standstill. In fact, we will not move the bright object anywhere else, because here is the true center of the body. This is the point where we will cultivate our bright object for our meditation. So here the bright object will stay while we repeat the mantra to ourselves. The sound of the mantra always coming from the center of the bright object. Samma arahang, Samma arahang, Samma arahang, over and over again. The sound of the mantra always comes from the center of the bright object. At the same time, we always make the bright object as bright as we can and as clear as we can. And as we observe the bright object, what we will find is that the images in the mind become gradually clearer. Also, the feelings in the mind will become gradually clearer to us. But the strange thing is that the number of thoughts in the mind will become gradually less. As we concentrate on the bright object and our mantra, the number of thoughts will become gradually less. Less and less until the mind can come to a standstill at the center of the body. So cultivate the mind in this way with your bright object and with the mantra. In the beginning you may find that the mind has a tendency to wander, sometimes wandering to the sounds around you, to the thoughts in your head, or the sensations in your body. But don't feel disappointed if the mind should wander at this stage. In the beginning, as soon as the mind wanders and you realize, always bring the mind back again to the bright object at the center of your body and to the sound of the mantra. If it wanders, then bring it back. And keep bringing the mind back until eventually the mind builds up a familiarity with the center of the body and the sound of the mantra, until eventually the mind will start to stay at the center of the body of its own accord. Samma arahang, Samma arahang, Samma arahang. Cultivating the sound of the mantra and the bright object, until eventually the mind will feel at home at the center of the body. Eventually you may find that the sound of the mantra will die away of its own accord, leaving only a pure, clear, shining mind at the center of the body. If you find at this point that there are no thoughts to irritate the mind anymore, then there's no need to restart with the mantra anymore. But simply cultivate the mind in stillness at the center of the body. And when the mind reaches a real point of stillness, then you find that happiness, purity and brightness will arise in the mind of their own accord. So cultivate your mind in silence for a few moments just with a bright shining object and the sound of the mantra, until your mind comes to a standstill at the center of the body. To each their own meditation for a few moments in silence until we come to the appropriate time. Sappa Dhammanupavena Sappa Sankhanupavena Sattha Soti Bhavantu Te. So if you'd like to come to the end of your meditation for today, you can gradually open your eyes again. If you feel at all uncomfortable, then slowly try changing to a more comfortable position and gently finish your practice. There are 3 levels of challenge which I've mentioned over the last few sessions that we've been trying to face up to on our journey of spiritual transformation. Today in this 11th session, we will be making the connection between the work we've been doing in spiritual transformation and the well-being of the world around us under the heading of reluctant leadership. There are many problems pervasive in the world today, problems which threaten the very existence of the world itself, whether it be war, crime, corruption, vice, discrimination, or drugs. However, these problems don't come from the environment, but can mostly be traced back to the habits of the people inhabiting the world. The term habits means the things we do, say, and think until having become used to them. These habits can either be good or bad. A person's habits are like a personal program, which determines the pattern of what they do, say, and think over and over again. We can know that a behavior has become a habit if, when prevented from continuing with that habit, it causes us irritation. For example, some people say they're not in the habit of smoking, but if they get irritated every time they run out of cigarettes, then you can know, in spite of what they claim, that smoking has become their habit. Supposing you have good habits, the sort of things which you do, say, and think over and over again will be the things that bring you happiness in life. When the things which you are doing in life align with your conscience, then you tend to go on to experience prosperity in life. However, if you have bad habits, the sort of things which you do, say, and think over and over again will be the things that bring you disappointment and suffering in life. In the end, because of the accumulation of suffering in life, your life will spiral towards deterioration and decay. Force of habit dictates whether our life is going to go on to prosperity or disaster. Thus, even if a person does not have a great deal of knowledge, if they have good habits, they can go on to prosperity in life. On the other hand, even if a person has a lot of knowledge, but they don't have good habits, then they will not have a bright future. This is not to underestimate the power of knowledge, but we have to see that knowledge is in fact just a tool of our habits. A third feature of habits is actually quite an encouraging one, because it helps us to see that not because of fate or destiny that do we experience happiness or suffering in life, but it is very much in our own hands, because it depends instead on what our habits are like. If our habits are our personal program, then we are also the programmer ourselves. There's a cartoon circulated widely in the United Nations where there was once a vote on change. When the speaker asks who wants change, the audience members enthusiastically raised their hands. In the second panel, though, the speaker refined their question and this time asked who wants to change. This time the audience members look at the ground, demurring. The moral of the story is that although it's never easy to change ourselves, but through a proper understanding of our habits, it is a project which is within the realm of possibility. The habits of people who live together in groups on the level of family, society, or country add up to dictate the collective prosperity or deterioration of that community. Thus, if we want to change society or humanity for the better, we have to transform the habits of members of that society for the better, starting with our own. The most important habit is being responsible. When we're talking about responsibility, in fact, we can talk about it on 3 levels of description. Our own sense of human dignity, responsibility for the human dignity of others, and responsibility for human dignity as part of a fair economic system. Responsibility for human dignity on a personal level means being responsible for preserving our own sense of human dignity or humanity, rather than behaving like a savage, by not killing, stealing, cheating on a trusting spouse or partner, and not telling lies. Responsibility for human dignity of others in society means not being biased or partial because of 4 different sorts of prejudice in the mind, which are greed, hatred, ignorance, and fear. Responsibility for fair economics means, although there is nothing wrong with looking for comfort and convenience in our lives, but it's wrong to seek convenience at the expense of others. And in this respect there are 6 particular forms of activity which undermine the fair economics of society, which include consuming alcohol and intoxicants, roaming the streets at unseemly hours, which is a euphemism for supporting the sex trade, addiction to entertainment, gambling, bad company, and laziness, and the livelihoods that support them. Sometimes these 3 categories of responsibility together are known as 14 forms of unwholesome habits, 4 defilements of action, 4 forms of bias, and 6 roads to ruin. Strategies for instilling responsibility and virtue in people's hearts comes as a 3-stage plan for the short, medium, and long term. A short-term solution, because the majority of people are self-centered and have no time to listen to long explanations of the danger of lacking responsibility in the 3 ways mentioned earlier, needs to start with the laying down of clear rules and regulations to prohibit the 14 irresponsible behaviors. The medium-term solution works more in terms of education. In this respect, we mean explaining the harm and benefits of having or lacking the 14 types of responsibility. Importantly, before you can educate other people, you have to educate yourself first to increase your own sense of responsibility for human dignity. You have to cultivate all 14 sorts of responsibility until they become your habits, and only then can you consider being an example to the rest of the world. The way to gain the qualities of a role model is to study these items of responsibility on 3 levels: right understanding of the responsibility, making the responsibility habitual, and ensuring the same responsibilities brush off on the people around us. We need to start by building up a right understanding of the item of responsibility. By understanding, we mean that we have to ask and answer 3 questions about that item of responsibility, namely what they are, by knowing the concept and definition, why, the purpose of a particular behavior which is either prohibited or advocated, and how they can be put into practice in everyday life. So why, what, and how. Secondly, we need to make that responsibility habitual. For as long as a responsibility is only known or memorized or talked about, it is still not doing you any major favors. You have to practice the responsibility until it becomes your habit, and only then will it bring you some benefit. Finally, for the sake of society, we need to train up the people around us to have responsible habits. This means reaching out into society to make a network of virtue extending to the whole of the world, so that the network of troublemakers will gradually recede. Long-term solutions mean to develop the fabric of society based on the logic of the 6 directions found in the Buddhist Sigalovada Sutta. If a person can live up to their duties in each of the 6 directions, it will bring out a full sense of responsibility in that person. In many places it's misunderstood that the nuclear family is the basic building block of a harmonious society. If the family were the fundamental unit of society, then if the family were happy, everyone in society would be happy too. But in reality, that is an oversimplification. If a rich family is happy but neglects the welfare of their employees, then that is hardly a happy society. By the system of the 6 directions, we put ourselves at the center of a social network that represents the minimum of functional contacts we have with 6 other social groups in society that affect our development of good habits. 6 directions means the 6 social groups that directly affect the formation of our habits. The first group is our own parents. The second influential group is our academic teachers. The third group is our spouse or partner. The fourth group is our friends, the group we looked at in detail in our previous session. The fifth group is our subordinates or employees. The sixth group is our spiritual mentors or teachers. Within these 6 groupings, we see that there are a total of 5 different social institutions that affects us. The first and third groups represent the family institution. The second group represents the educational establishment. The fifth group represents our working environment. The fourth group represents our socializing in general. The sixth group represents the spiritual establishment. Just by talking about the 6 directions, in fact, you may be referring to hundreds, possibly thousands of people who have a direct effect on your spiritual well-being. These 6 directions have to cooperate with one another. If that 100 or 1,000 people work together in harmony, each looking after their own duties, that society will go on to prosper in the long term. And the experience of our temple organization is that home, school and temple are the most accessible arbiters of the upgrading of good habits long term in society. The 6 directions model is the basis of a plan which can be used to reform the whole of society for the better. All that's required is that those people in each of the 6 directions realize and take responsibility for their duties. We can model the 6 directions as a sort of cube. This cube or hexagon has combined with the 3 levels of responsibility explained earlier. Altogether, these 3 levels of responsibility in the 6 directions are a plan for establishing humanity in a brighter future. Without going into full detail of our duties for the 6 directions, I can summarize the influence of each direction on good habits as follows. For the parent-child relationship, there are 2 major issues: raising one's children and instilling good habits in them. The main problem with many parents these days is they just want to bring their children up to be strong and healthy, with an awareness of all the modern technology, but they forget to take an interest in the sort of habits their children have. In the teacher-student relationship, teachers have to build on the good habits that the parents have instilled, reinforcing these while increasing the student's level of academic knowledge. Really, instilling and reinforcing good habits should be the teacher's main duty. Only when a child has good habits will they be able to put what they know into good use. However, this is not what happens in our schools today. Teachers just try to impart the most knowledge possible, while completely ignoring the sort of habits their students have. What they are doing by passing on knowledge to students of questionable habits is tantamount to increasing the number of savvy troublemakers in our society. The authorities end up having to waste time catching all those criminals instead of being able to do better things with their time and resources. In the spouse or partner relationship, the main issue would be with the sharing of good habits. Supposing a husband says to his wife, "This is my bad habit, it's none of your business," or vice versa, then it's hard to understand why the husband and wife wanted to live together in the first place. It's like the cohabitation of 2 enemies. Really, Marital partners should be helping bring out the best in each other. If they can manage this, then they have a lot more work waiting for them in terms of upgrading the goodness in the hearts of others in society. If partners in a relationship don't see their marriage in these terms, then maybe it's better not to get married in the first place. When talking about the friends you associate with, it's the same sort of principle as sharing good habits with one another. If you share the good habits you have with those around you, then the number of good people in the world will constantly be on the increase. And if your friends find themselves in difficulty, of course, you should lend them a helping hand. In the workplace, it should be also about sharing the goodness we have with others. Supposing laborers or employees are already struggling to get by in life without much time for virtue, but if they don't have the support of their employer to become interested in these things and upgrade themselves and their view of the world, they will not manage to make any sort of spiritual progress in their lives. Often when workers organize themselves into trade unions, their only motivation is financial benefit, rather than concern for upgrading spiritual values to make their work meaningful or conform with right livelihood. As for spiritual mentors, the first priority is to accrue good habits for oneself in order to be a role model to others in society. Once this has been accomplished, the spiritual mentors can help teach others their duties according to the 6 directions. Spiritual mentors have to be a good friend first to themselves and then to others in society. If they don't do this duty, then they're not fulfilling their true role in society. You'll notice that if each person looks after their strong ties in their 6 directions, the result will be a snug or seamless interfacing between the individual bricks that form the fabric of society. And the cement between the bricks in society is the compassion manifested between the people, the 4 bases of sympathy: generosity, endearing speech, helpfulness, and consistency, that we've seen in the previous sessions. The structure of society in Asia is slightly more hierarchical than Western society, so the bricks in society pile up into quite a tall structure because the difference between the lowest and the highest levels of society is significant. But the thing to notice is that the society is structured and organized. The Western version of successful social structure is also structured and organized in the 6 directions, but because it's less hierarchical and more egalitarian, it is more like a low-rise structure. Problems with society will occur, however, where the snug interfacing between individuals breaks down, where it becomes every person for themselves. Society will become anarchic. Instead of being a well-organized structure, it will break down into the social equivalent of a pile of rubble. But what you will notice, whether society is well-structured or anarchic, is that those like yourself who are meditators and who care about their 6 directions will always find themselves at the center of society, because others will look to you for support and reliability. So even if you started out in meditation thinking only of your personal well-being, eventually you'll find yourself in a leadership role, even if it is with a high degree of reluctance. So now we come to the part of the live stream where we try to answer some of the questions sent in by viewers. My question today is another one from Kathleen of Glendora. Here comes the question. Last session, you talked about being a good friend, but how can you attract good friends in a time of social distancing when there are very few places to meet up? Hi Kathleen, thanks for your question. It is true that face-to-face meetings are difficult to find in times of social distancing. In spite of the pandemic, I think it is more important than ever to try to do what we can to support the idea of being a good friend. If you remember, there are 3 aspects to being a good friend: being a good friend to yourself, selecting a good friend, and being a good friend to others. Not all of these are limited by social distancing. For being a good friend to yourself, there are more opportunities than usual because we spend more time in our own company. But this behooves us to be more cautious about our thoughts and attitudes to make sure they are positive instead of wallowing in melancholy or frustration. As for letting others be a good friend to us, try to join as many online and offline temple activities as you can to boost your level of inspiration by being with like-minded folks. Even seeing like-minded meditators at the Saturday morning alms offering in the temple front garden is good for the soul. As for being a good friend to others, we need to try and find ways to cultivate weak tie relationships in lockdown and beyond. Even under conditions of social distancing, our more distant friends can be important to us. Since we're all curious to see how others are coping, what they're doing, and figuring out how to behave, social media is a useful substitute for weak tie conversations. We can use it to reach out to people we don't know well, for light but meaningful interactions. We can also engage in more frequent weak tie style interactions with our strong ties, checking in to see how people are without engaging them in a full conversation, to let others know you are thinking of them, without asking for a great deal of time, energy, or attention. The important thing with online networking is that we should select only uplifting and positive things to share with other people. If others share trashy or negative things with you, you should not pass these along to others. I hope this answers the question to some extent. In conclusion, social distancing is an obstacle to the process of the good friend, but we can do what we can with what is available to us. So let me finish up with a couple of news updates, one about the upcoming Katina ceremony at the temple and the other my usual PSA about the availability of meditation teaching in English. The temple continues to be reliant on its weekly COVID Silver Lining Fund for food, medicine, and utilities to keep the temple community going. Convenient ways to make a donation with the COVID Silver Lining Fund donation are mailing checks to the temple address or by making a bank transfer. Online transfers can also be made by Venmo or Zelle. The special merits arising for those practicing generosity in these times of adversity are that you will have a life free of obstacles and danger, you will gain mastery of all forms of knowledge, prosper in your duties, have special insight into Dharma teachings, attain purity with ease, breaking free of the defilements in the mind. You will gain wealth on worldly, spiritual, and transcendental levels, allowing you to pursue perfections with ease, all the way to the attainment of the utmost Dharma. The whole temple would like to rejoice in your merits on this occasion. Meditation is particularly valuable in this COVID era to help us cope with the dysphoria of the new normal. And in this respect, here at the temple, although there are no face-to-face teaching sessions for the interim, you can access Dharma teachings at the YouTube channel called Peace Point Meditation, or the Facebook page of Peace Point Meditation, either live on Thursday evenings and Sunday mornings, or on demand after the event. For the benefit of families listening in, there's also a special show for children in English called Shining Stars that goes out between 7:30 and 8 p.m. every Monday evening with bedtime stories and meditation short enough to keep the attention of the younger listeners. And outside of the live streams and the on-demand programming, there's also the MindGem app, which you can download for free, allowing you to listen to meditation and Dharma talks in English on your cell phone, even when you are offline. So, this session we've looked at the topic of rationing, unconditional love, and reluctant leadership. For good measure, I'd like to remind viewers again, even better than posting thank you or great talk or sadhu, which are encouraging, you can move to the next level and try posting a few questions, and I'll do my best to answer these on my next session. In the meantime, try to stay healthy, avoid recklessness, speak only positive words, and maintain a positive mood. Forgive others, extend good wishes to others, and meditate daily. Try to apply compassion appropriately to strong or weak ties in your life, and by understanding habits in the context of the 6 directions to become more of a leader of wholesomeness in this world, even if it is with a certain degree of reluctance on your part. So today, this is me, Prime Nicholas Thanissaro, signing off for this session. So long, folks, and stay safe.